Farmers are using these drones to monitor crop health with incredible accuracies, right? So in previous days, you had to have someone who is familiar with agriculture, some agricultural scientist who has to come, look at your farm, maybe say, hey, this is how much pesticide you have to spray here. This is where you have disease. This is what you have to do. Imagine all of that done autonomously and the data being at your fingertips, right? So they can capture data on soil conditions, plant growth, detect diseases very early. They can help farmers make very, very informed decisions about irrigation, fertilizer. I bet you would be sitting in your home using an app like Uber and booking in a taxi, probably just to travel about 50 kilometers, 40 kilometers, beat the traffic. So this is closer than you think it is, probably next 10 years in India. So case is assets inspections. So think about inspecting things like bridges, oil rigs, power lines. Most of these assets, as we call, they need very frequent inspections or maintenance. Your rail infrastructure is only safe because it is being maintained or it is being inspected on a frequent scheduled basis. So to keep the safety of its functioning upkeep, right? So normally this would require humans to physically climb or use some sort of ropes. It's really risky, all these power lines and all these things. Definitely time consuming. Whenever you see power being cut in some of the locations, one of the likely reasons also is because some of the inspection work is going on in some part of electricity distribution line. But now, drones can perform these inspections very, very quickly and very safely, and they give that data, that look that even people couldn't have, with all that physical climbing and scaffolding, right? So now, drones can really access hard to reach places without actually putting anyone in danger. So it's a huge, huge leap forward in terms of safety and efficiency. Now, and drones can perform these inspections across many. I couldn't really put all those industries or name them in one slide. So just think of any asset that needs inspection and use drones to do it safely. Now, you would have also watched on news that a lot of police personnel using drones to monitor crowds, like in Kumbh Mela or any sort of gathering, protests. All of these places, drones are being used to monitor crowd safety, and so on and so forth. Not only that, imagine if you own a small factory in a remote area, or maybe think you have a large farm where you really want to see what's happening there, right? So what's happening where? So drones can actually help you keep an eye from anywhere, right? So we call it aerial monitoring. And maybe just a quick clip to show you where the technology is. You are no longer needed to maintain the drone, change, recharge the battery or do anything manually. You just need to take out your phone and say, hey, I want to look at my plant. Or if you have multiple drones that are set up in your plant, you just say, hey, what do I have to look at, right? So I'll just play a quick 10-second clip just to, you can see that this is called as a drone dock. So your drones sit autonomously within the drone docks. No one needs to control it. There's no remote. There's nothing of that sort. No charging manually or any of those things. You sit at your home and you just say, hey, where do I have to look at, right? So just to give you a perspective, this is not huge. The size is just size printer that we all see in some shops, right? So or even less than that. So it's quite accessible right now. So imagine you can set these up anywhere you want in your property. Just click a button and they're ready to give you an aerial view within seconds. Now, and one of the most fascinating use cases that I saw being developed over the last 5-6 years is in agriculture, right? So probably agriculture, which is more, farmers are using these drones to monitor crop health with incredible accuracies, right? So in previous days, you had to have someone who is familiar with agriculture, some agricultural scientist who has to come, look at your farm, maybe say, hey, this is how much pesticide you have to spray here. This is where you have disease. This is what you have to do. Imagine all of that done autonomously and the data being at your fingertips, right? So they can capture data on soil conditions, plant growth, detect diseases very early. They can help farmers make very, very informed decisions about irrigation, fertilizer. I mean, this kind of precision, this is called as a precision agriculture. It's really transforming the way we grow food, makes us very, very efficient and sustainable. Although it's not very, very popular in India yet, especially because the landscape in India is a bit different, where all our farmers are very, very small in terms of the land holding they have. The average amount of land a farmer holds in India is less than an acre. So it makes it a bit challenging for them to use from cost perspective, but I don't see it being very far away that where most of us are using this as a common way of, as common as a tractor, or even more common going forward, right? So along the same lines, in agriculture, drones are also, I'm sure this is probably one of the things that you guys might in recent times, because Prime Minister promoting, spraying drones left, right, center. So it's good to see governments push there as well. And instead of spraying entire fields with pesticides or fertilizers, these drones can actually target specific areas that need treatment. The drones that captured this data sends the data to cloud. That cloud sends the data to the spraying drones, and they can autonomously go there and say, okay, this is the area that needs pesticides, or this is the area that needs treatment. It all reduces a lot of waste, and also reduces most importantly, reduces the impact to environment, right? So the more efficient we are in using these pesticides and all these things, the lesser the impact to environment. So it's not only better for the crops and soil, but also for the farmers altogether in the bottom line. Yeah. So along the same lines, drones are being used for logistics. This is one of the more recent use cases that is still being developed. And you see from anywhere from an e-commerce delivery, e-commerce package, to medical deliveries to remote locations, to very, very large cargo that needs transport from, say, one warehouse to another warehouse. This is the future. You can expect these things becoming as common as agricultural spraying drones probably in the next 5 years alone, right? So, looking ahead, we are going to see some really exciting developments over the next 20 years. Imagine the development that has happened in the last 20 years, and with the advent of AI, right? So first off, AI will definitely play a very big role in making drones smarter, more autonomous. Now, and imagine, always technology moves faster and faster, right? In the last 20 years, if we think, oh, that's awesome, that's too much, probably in the next 2 to 3 years, the amount of development would be equivalent to the last 20 years, and so on and so forth. So, and imagine what would happen in the next 20 years, right? So first off, AI definitely without any question. But maybe I'll just move to the next slide fast. So this is the next revolution, right? So we call these eVTOLs for electric vertical takeoff landing vehicles for passenger transport. Imagine booking an Uber, right? Today we sit in our maybe not everywhere, but let's say in large cities, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Delhi, right? So we sit in our homes, book a taxi, it arrives in 5 minutes, 10 minutes time. I mean, I'm not exaggerating, probably in 10 years time, at least in India in 10 years time, you would be sitting in your homes and booking an air taxi. That's how common these vehicles would be. Trials have already started in countries like US, New Zealand, some of the European countries as well. Companies like Joby, Lilium, Archer, whose drones have just represented in this slide, they are at the forefront of this revolution. They have pushed the boundaries, not just from technology, but from the regulatory and compliance side of it, pushing governments to bring new rules to make this happen. Imagine how this could actually change personal transportation forever, right? So in 10 years time, I bet you would be sitting in your home using an app like Uber and booking an air taxi, probably just to travel about 50 kilometers, 40 kilometers, beat the traffic. So this is closer than you think it is, probably next 10 years in India. I've kept on talking, there's so many drones in the world, 75 lakhs sold just last year, personal taxis coming all across, right? So we have roads and traffic lights to control all the, ground vehicles. But if there's so many of these drones flying, buzzing over you, it's too dangerous, isn't it? So that's where, things are happening at a slower pace than we imagined it to be. So there's some world over, governments are working on something called as unmanned traffic management, which is essentially a traffic control for drones, right? So simply too many drones and all of them being flown manually or autonomously You need a comprehensive solution that autonomously manages this traffic, increases safety, doesn't make it too much for everyone. I'm sure you wouldn't like drones buzzing all over, 24/7 on top of your head, right? So to control that more efficiently, there's something called as unmanned traffic management system that world over most countries are working on. India is working on it as well. Digital Sky, India's initiative is called as Digital Sky, India's version of unmanned traffic management solution. So by the time we see these aerial taxis being very, very common, UTM, that is unmanned traffic management solution, would be much more robust and would be the norm controlling all these things. So just skipping a few slides. Yeah, I would just like to, without boring you too much, I would like to just conclude by saying that I truly believe that drones will become as common as smartphones, probably sooner than we all think they would be. And especially me being within the industry, I get to see the trend. I have more of a perception, understanding than mostly you have, but that's why I wanted to give my own perspective to you. And they'll become a part of our daily lives very soon, delivering packages, transporting people, helping with medical emergencies, so on and so forth. And the way we think about and interact with the drones is going to evolve massively as well, and they'll soon be an integral part to all of our everyday life. So that wraps up my talk today.
There's a question from Mr. Sunil Kumar Panchumarthi. Is any training or certification is required for usage of drones?
Again, there are different categories of usages. Let's say if you really want to use for your personal purposes, and if the drone weighs less than 250 grams, you can do it without any certification. Probably you don't even need a training watch. You can find, depending on what drones you buy, you will have a small tutorial. Nowadays, these drones are very, very easy to use. So in a nutshell, you don't need a certificate if your drone is less than 250 grams and you're using it for personal purposes. Ensure that you don't fly beyond 400 meters in distance from you, and you don't fly in sensitive areas. Just use common sense, so you don't need a certificate. But if you do anything other than these conditions, yes, depending on what is the use case, how sensitive it is, you would definitely need a certification. It's just like a driving license. You'll have to attend a 3-4 days course, DGCA certified. All in all, it will cost about somewhere between 10 to 50,000 rupees, depending on where you take this training, 3 days training. And then afterwards, wherever you are flying so Indian government has divided the whole landmass, the country's landmass, into 3 different zones: red zone, orange zone, and green zone. If it is a green zone, yes. And if you have a pilot certificate license, go ahead and fly. If it is a red zone, it's a strict no. If it is an orange zone, there are some restrictions to it when you can fly with whose permission. So this map also can be found.
So on what basis are the regions divided into red zone, orange zone, and green zone?
So most Tier 1 cities are red zones. Let's say Bangalore or Hyderabad, right? So they are very, very densely populated areas. So there are criteria will be like how populated a particular area is, whether an infrastructure like an airport or a military installation, natural parks or natural reserve forest zones, red zone. Slightly lesser population density, orange zone, but if the population density is much lesser, it's safe to fly.
Yeah, Shmuel, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, thank you very much. Very interesting presentation. I too very interesting in the field of drones. And I want to ask you a question. How, according to you, drones can support resolution problems of poverty and food security?
Right. So at the end of the day, although I don't see drone, at least not now, right? So out of all the use cases that I see, you may not see them directly affecting or improving the poverty levels, right? So what behind used to increase the efficiency of farming. They are able to increase your yield. They are able to identify diseases early. That way you are you're spending less money to increase your yield and reduce the losses. So ultimately, indirectly, this is definitely helping you with food security, number one. Number two is, for countries, some of the countries, and you'd be amazed to find that countries in Africa, very, very poor countries in Africa, are the first ones to adopt drone technology for medical deliveries, because they're so poor that they don't have roads, they don't have people can't afford coming, even if they are ill, they can't, they are being used by governments to supply medicines to very, very remote areas to people who are very poor. Mostly people can just go to, some village head, ask for a medicine, that guy will just book something on for a call. The drone will directly deliver within such a short span. And not just that, in difficult situations, drones are also being used to deliver food to remote areas. So as I can just say that the standard of life of poor people behind the scenes, maybe in a small way right now, but as we go forward, it will really snowball and change, bring an impact much more than they're doing today.
Hope that answered your question.
Yes, answer. Thank you very much. And I want to ask you another question. I want to ask you how it is of India trying develop the field of drones. What the government of India do for development of drones field?
Sure. It's a good question, actually. So when I started my first company back in 2014, within 6 months of us starting that company, terror attacks that have happened in the country at that time, government imposed a blanket ban on flying drones, or for any use case, civilian use cases or commercial use cases, right? So imagine, I'm a very young guy, started a small company in an emerging field. I don't have any support from technology. No one knows, no professor can help us with our problems. And one fine day you wake up to see, hey, no, you can't fly drones, right? But since then, we've actually come out a lot. 21, Indian government brought in drone regulations, and they are today one of the world's most progressive regulations anywhere, right? So today I can very confidently say that India is one of the most progressive place for drone regulations. At the end of the day, what can the government do? They are not there to build technology, advanced technology, build drones, right? So they are there to help people like us build by making our lives easy, by guidelines that make sure that we work in peace, that encourage us, and at the same time there are good grants. There is a good support ecosystem. Just 2 years ago, government launched a scheme called as PLI, Production Linked Incentives. So to encourage people who are producing these technologies inside the country. So what government has done is, okay, if you're producing inside the country, okay, so you can take another 6 to 8% benefit in revenues. So these are the kinds of steps government over the last 3-4 years. Especially, if I just have to summarize one, we are one of the best places for drone regulations, very, very progressive ones. There are so many schemes like PLI scheme I just mentioned that is there to help people like ourselves building these drones too. And not to mention, of course, the current government is really, really doing a lot of PR by showcasing drones for agriculture, drone DDs, Prime Minister himself, mentioning about drones being used for agriculture in various forums. But yeah, I think government is doing what a good government is supposed to do.
Thank you very much.